The radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Sunday night, at least on the East Coast. It's night. Bessie is here. She's all the way in London. It must be, I don't know, 1 o'clock in the morning over there. All right, that's dedication. That's dedication to the show. All right, hope you all had a great weekend and ready for another exciting work week starting tomorrow morning. I know I am. It's going to be a busy week. Traveling to Austin. I'll be participating in a seminar there on altruism. Two full days just talking about altruism. It should be a lot of fun. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, Ali's not here. I don't know where Ali is. Ali didn't make it today. We still have the $600 goal, so you don't get an off night just because Ali didn't make it. But we got a great beginning. Dan says for $50. Thank you, Dan. That's very generous. Yaron, great seeing you at UPenn. Debate, yeah, it was good to see you. I was glad you argued that socialism is not just immoral, but also unoriginal. Yeah, uninspiring, it's being tried over and over for 150 years with no avail. Please keep reminding your opponents that they are not fringe thinkers. Yeah, they're not cutting edge. They're not original and interesting. Corey says $20 Australian. Oh, we got good news from Australia. Didn't catch stream yesterday, but congratulations on the debate. Hopefully you demystified some of Richard Wolff's followers and caused them to question their ideas. I hope so. We will find out over time, I think, whether that occurred or not. Good news about Australia. Corey, you can leave. Starting November 1, Australians can actually leave the country. The wall has come down. The Berlin Wall, whatever wall you want to call it, the wall surrounding. No, flights are allowed. Australians are allowed to leave. They don't have to ask permission from the government and get special approval in order to leave the country, which is, I guess, super exciting. Not only that, but Australia's citizens, after 580-something days, can finally go back home. The government is allowing them to come back home. So Australians rejoice. Starting November 1, you will no longer be a prison. It's been 19 months since Australians have been allowed to travel internationally, and they are back. That is pretty exciting. Corey's excited, I can tell, and I think everybody's thrilled. All right. Who would have thought that Australia, of all places, would be the worst in the world in terms of their lockdowns and constraints and everything else? Just unbelievable. All right. The government is decided to stop punishing them. Let's see. Okay, so let's run through the reminders. Don't forget to like the show before you leave. I see we've already got 2 people who hate the show before I even started. Maybe they're the socialists. Maybe they're just the Trumpists or something that hate me anyway. So who knows? Hard to tell, but we got 2 thumbs down already. All right, don't forget to like the show before you leave if you like the show. Don't forget to support the show through Super Chat. You can just make a contribution via Super Chat. You can ask a question. You can make a comment. Please ask questions. That's what makes the show, I think, interesting, is the live questions from you. So on topic, off topic, whatever, $20 or more associated with the question gets priority. You know all this. And the way we're going to get to our goal of $600 is with a lot of $20, $50, $100 questions. Not that many $100 questions, and we'd already be there. So please do that. If there are some of you who find what I'm saying interesting but are not yet subscribers, please subscribe. Press that subscribe button. And of course, those of you who are regulars, I have one request above all for you. help the show grow. And the way to help the show grow is take some content that you feel comfortable with doing this with, and share it. You all have maybe small social media platforms, but a lot of people's small platforms is a lot of exposure. Tweet, Facebook, Paula, whatever is out there, put it out there. Get the show, get the ideas out there. You know, we purposefully, Action Jackson has made a number of short videos out of the debate, kind of to really punch home the point that Wolff was pathetic. Use that. Take those short videos, put them out there. If you're serious about fighting the socialism, the rising socialism in our country, the way to do that is to help get this content out there. So share. I don't see a lot of it going on. I mean, I see how many people retweet my stuff on Twitter when I advertise one of these videos. Very few of you are doing that. I see how many people are sharing videos when I put them up on Facebook. I don't see many of you doing that. Now, maybe you're doing it straight out of YouTube, and if you are, that's great. Please tag me when you share. That's always good. That's always also a way for people to find me. But anyway, even if you don't, as long as you share, I don't care. As long as you share, I don't care. Hey, we can make that a rap song. It rhymes. Help us get, the goal is to get to 100,000 subscribers. It's debates like this that should really spike subscriptions, but that will only happen if people watch it. People don't watch it, can't get those subscriptions spiked. Alec Ramos is helping out by keeping track of Super Chat contributions. Thanks you, Alec. Really appreciate that. So we're just over $100. So it looks like, we are now. So thank you, Wes. Glad I'm able to see another live show. Thank you, Theme Master. Share or face the socialist consequences. That's right. If you don't share, socialist wins. All of us, pay the consequences when that happens. All right, I thought since we're talking about socialists, we would kind of wrap up the topic with a show on socialism. Socialism, is it evil? Hopefully some good sound bites will come out of the show, or some cool segments about the evil of socialism can come out of the show. I also want to talk a little bit about why I think the supply chain is backed up. I don't have any hard evidence of this. I haven't seen any good studies about this. I'll keep looking because it is an important topic. But I am seeing lots of stories about how this is a failure of markets, a failure of capitalism, a failure of globalization. And it's obvious to me that is wrong. So I think that's worth talking about. And then, if you're nice, and if you want this, so I've reviewed a bunch of movies that you've asked me to. I mostly don't like the movies that you've asked me to review. I think somebody is offered to sponsor, Squid Games. So I will be watching Squid Games and reviewing it, but I'm trying to raise the money to do it. I think to do Squid Games, all 8 episodes is about $2,000. So $250 an episode, 8 episodes, $2,000. So if anybody's interested in helping sponsor a review of Squid Games, which I would probably do, I'd probably do the show not this coming week, the week after that. I'd probably watch it this week as I travel. If I can download it, I don't know. Then let me know. But Squid Games is out. But anyway, I've been reviewing quite a few movies, but most of the movies I've reviewed with you guys, I didn't like, right? So I figured if you're interested, I'm willing to give you some names of movies I love. Movies that I think are spectacular, great movies, or at least movies that I've enjoyed tremendously and think are excellent. And if you're interested in me doing that, we can do that at the end of the show today. We can pick 5. We can pick 5, 6, 7, 8 movies, depending on the I think one way we could do this is if you guys want to ask Like you put $20 on what's your favorite comedy or what's 5 good comedies. Don't ask me favorite. Ask me top 5. What's your top 5 dramas? What's your top? And you put some dollars from the super chat on it. I will give you. I've got a list of some of my favorite movies here. Now, granted, they're all old. I made this list a long, long time ago, so there are no new movies on here. But then there are barely any new movies that I like anyway. So, all right, we already got $100 for Squid Games towards the Squid Game things. We've only got 1,900 left to go. I'm pretty sure I've got 1,000 set aside that the guy who suggested I do this would put 1,000 in. So I think we probably only have $900 to get to a full review of Squid Games. But anybody who wants to jump in and put in $100, $500, $1,000, whatever for Squid Games, please feel free to do so. All right. I think we're ready. We're ready at $228, so we've got a way to go. We'll probably set the goal today at 1,000, assuming some of these are coming in for Squid Games and for other things. But yeah, whatever we raise will be fantastic. But yes, I've got to do Squid Games, Star Trek, that one episode, and Shazbot has me choosing between 3 movies, one that I would like to review. I still haven't decided which one of them I'm going to do, but I'll figure that out in the next few days. I think we're ready to jump in to socialism. So let's start with what is socialism, and this of course is the guy defending it the other night, Richard Wolff, never defined it. Never defined socialism. It's evolving. It's changing. It keeps experimenting. It's just this co-ops. Co-ops is socialism. Now, we all know he doesn't believe that. We all know that he has a much more expansive view of socialism. He's actually got books about this topic. In those books, he has a much bigger role for the state. He has much bigger role for coercion than just let's put a few co-ops together so what is socialism? He never defined it. Well, socialism traditionally, okay, I'll give him the evolution. Traditionally has been where the state controls the means of production, where the means of production, that is business, industry, services, what produces the stuff that we consume, is owned, controlled completely, without any semblance of private property, by the state. All right, so Richard said, no, it's evolving. We're not that interested in the state anymore. Well, then you could expand this to be where the means of production are owned by the state or by the workers by mandate. Because if it's the case that workers own the means of production when they buy them or when they take control over them by peaceful, voluntary means, well, that's capitalism. Workers can indeed own the means of production. At the startup, arguably, you could say that the owners own the means of production. They are shareholders, all of them. You get options, you get stock when you go work for a startup. Everybody who works there is participating. Now, they don't get a vote democratically about who is CEO and stuff, but they do in a sense that they vote based on how much ownership they have. They get to elect a board of directors, theoretically. At least if they have stock, not options. So business has never been one man, one vote. It's not always even one share of ownership, one vote. It's often, it's always, right, either your share of ownership, and then some shares have more voting rights than others. And that's part of the voluntary arrangement set up within some corporations. So, for example, the Ford family still controls Ford from a voting perspective, even though it is a minority shareholder in Ford. They have special category of shares that that they vote, and it gives them supermajority rights. And the same with at Facebook. Zuckerberg has supermajority rights. Okay, so those are two potential definitions of socialism. State owns the means of production. The workers own the means of production. That's typically been the standard. But socialism has meant much more broad things like that. Where the state is redistributes wealth on a massive scale, where the state maybe owns, what do they call it? Democratic socialism is where the state owns some of the means of production, owners own some, and there is some semblance of private property. But generally, I would say, a broader definition of socialism would focus on private property. And you could define socialism as that system in which there is no private property over the means of production. That is, there's no recognition of private property over the means of production. So if you remember, I've debated these socialists and say, well, you own your clothes, you might even own your home, you have private property over those things, but not over big things. I don't know what big things mean, but I think what they mean is the means of production. So Marx and Richard Wolff are primarily concerned about means of production. They're primarily concerned about business, about how stuff is produced. And of course, Marx was a materialist. So for him, production is muscle. Production, this is why he elevates the workers the way he does, because they're the ones who use muscle. And Wolff, it's the same thing. There's no mind in a Marx universe. That's why the CEO is not a meaningful position. That's why planning, strategy are not important. None of these things have significance because the mind, anything that has to do with the mind, has no significance. It's brute force. And indeed, because the mind, there's no need to specialize. So you don't need to specialize with regard to those realms that involve the mind, management, for example. And that's why rotating jobs and, anybody could be a manager. Because real production, the real work, is all muscle. And we all can do muscle work, and management is no different. So socialism is concerned primarily with the means of production. Now, modern leftism is different because modern leftism is much more concerned about other aspects of human life, about culture more broadly. And you can see that in their insistence on, CRT and wokeism, which is much broader than kind of the materialistic framework, the economic materialistic framework that Marx created. Modern leftists are influenced by many, many more people than just Marx. They're heavily influenced by Rousseau. They're heavily influenced by Hegel. They're heavily influenced by the postmoderns and by critical theory. And of course, so were the Maoists and the Stalinists. It wasn't just about the means of production. Everything was controlled. Thought was controlled. Speech was controlled. I mean, what is the Cultural Revolution? The Cultural Revolution in Maoist China, a revolution that I guess Wolff denies, or at least he denies any negative consequences for it, where millions and millions of people were slaughtered by the Red Guard, where people's lives were turned upside down even when they weren't slaughtered, was all about thought control. It was all about sending people to re-education camps. You can see a very similar trend today in China with the Uyghurs in re-education camps, and I wouldn't be surprised if we soon will see re-education camps for high-tech entrepreneurs. So you get from Marx, you get an ever-growing, and implicit in Marx is the necessity to not just deny private property, but ultimately to deny private thought. Because what is property, right? The Marxists think, well, we're just denying private property. And I've debated Marxists who say, oh no, we believe in free speech, we believe in free thought, we believe in open debate, we believe in all. No, not at the end of the day. Because the negation of private property is the negation of thought. The negation of private property is the negation of the individual's mind. The negation of private property is the recognition that the only thing that matters is not the individual and his life, but the group. Why? Well, because the right to life, making life your standard, implies property. It implies life requires effort. Life requires the production of goods. To say my life is mine is to say that the things I produce are mine. The things that I produce in order to survive, the things that I produce in order to thrive, the things that I produce in order to be a human being. You cannot separate the things that I produce from my life. My life requires material, and that material requires production, and that production is done by individuals, and they own what it is that they produce. If they salaried, what they produce is the salary. Salary reflection of their value to the business, to the value added that they contribute to the production of whatever they're working on. So you cannot separate the right to life. You cannot separate the ability of individual to live his life from property rights. Property rights are essential. They're not a derivative. They're not just a secondary issue. They're not, oh well, we can do without them. You can't do without them. And the rejection of property rights, therefore, is a rejection of an individual's life. It's a rejection of his striving to achieve. It's a rejection, ultimately, therefore, of his mind, the tool of production. And it's a rejection of a morality, of a code of ethics that says that the purpose of individual's life is to live and ultimately to achieve happiness, to live the best life that he can, based on the judgment of his own mind, based in pursuit of his own values, values he has chosen using his rational mind. So, socialism rejects the morality of individualism. And of course it has to, because the whole idea of socialism, the whole idea of a group, any group, controlling, owning in quotes, because they don't literally own, owning in quotes, the means of production is, at the base of it, at the foundation of it, at its core, is collectivism. Is it the idea that the individual's life doesn't matter? The individual's life is just a means to an end. That the end is the collective. The end is the so-called well-being of the collective. And of course, it's also a recognition that that there is no such thing, certainly is no meaningful thing associated with individual thinking. The thinking is fundamentally not an individual's thing. The thinking is a group activity. What socialists do is they reject individualism in all of its aspects. They reject the morality of individualism. They reject the thinking behind The idea that the individual is the thinker. They reject the idea that reason is man's basic means of survival, but it's a man's. That there is no groupthink, that there is no group consciousness. Socialism is fundamentally collectivist. It's fundamentally views the individual not as an end in itself, not as the unit of morality, but as a means to an end. And in that sense, I don't care what kind of socialist you are. I don't care what variety or what evolved notion of socialism you have. The philosophy is evil because collectivism is evil. The philosophy is evil. Socialism is evil because the idea that man is nothing but a cog, that man is nothing but a means, is an evil end. It is the idea behind slavery. It is the idea behind serfdom. Now, socialists believe that they are an evolution beyond capitalism. That is, you had feudalism, which then capitalism replaced as a superior to feudalism, and then they would replace capitalism. But no, see, they replacing capitalism basically turns us into feudalism. The feudalist, your life didn't matter. You were means to an end to some group, the aristocrats, the king, the god, whatever. They want to replace it with the individual as a means to the end of the well-being of fill in the blank. The proletarian, the workers, the state, the group, Mao, Stalin, depends on your version of socialism. And this is the point. It doesn't matter. Even the softest form of socialism, the social democrats, social democracy, ultimately has the view that you as an individual must serve others. You as an individual are not an end to yourself. Your production is not yours. You don't get to keep it. You don't get to decide what to do with it. You are just a means. In Scandinavia, you're the means to an end of a large welfare state, let's say. It's still you as a means. It's still collectivism. It's still somebody else is more important than you. You as an individual don't matter. Now, in Scandinavia, they try to balance this out by, in other ways, respecting you as an individual, free speech, and for the most part, and some private property, maybe as much as the United States, private property. But you can see that even there, even a system that is mixed, or America of today, that is mixed, still on the side of the welfare state, or on the side of COVID, right? Emergency powers through COVID. Always view you as an individual, not as an end. It's not the purpose of government to protect you, but as a means to serving some higher goal. And that is always evil. That is always wrong. Socialism as an ism, certainly as a consistent ism, embraces that completely and is pure evil. Because it rejects you, me, rejects our values, rejects our mind, it rejects our right to our stuff, to our thinking, to the product of our thinking, to our goal, which is our own individual happiness. It rejects that completely. You are not an end in yourself. You cannot just pursue your own values. And your mind is just one mind among many. What's important is what the group thinks. And this is why, by the way, you get that. You get how little they regard the human mind, the individual human mind, with their adoration of democracy. Because democracy is the expression of the collective. And it's the subjugation of the individual to the mob. It's a subjugation of your mind to the demagogue. The demagogue can rally up the majority. It's the subjugation of your mind to any group that can muster enough resources to decide how you should live your life, what you should do, what your values should be. So in every aspect of socialism, in every variation of socialism, it is an evil ideology. Again, because it rejects the sanctity of the individual, its sanctity of your mind, and it sacrifices it towards the group. The group, the collective, is the primary. And again, you could see this in Wolff all over the place. And why, at the end of the day, he wouldn't even condemn Mao Zedong, because Mao, he was just doing it for the people. Maybe he made some mistakes, but he was doing it for the right cause. He was doing it for the people. Even Stalin, as bad as he turned out to be, and he was a little bit of an egomaniac, but it was an attempt at the common good. And what's most important, it was an attempt to crush the individual. And Stalin and Mao were very good at that. Very good at suppressing individual, eliminating private property. They just got a little too, the socialists said, they just got a little too carried away with it. So yes, is socialism evil? Yes. If your standard of the good is that which promotes human life, if the standard of the good is that which supports human life, individual human life, then socialism is the enemy. It has killed tens, if not hundreds of millions of their own people, not in war, but just in spite, in order to achieve their system. Can you believe? We'll get to the can you believe in a minute. They've killed tens of millions of people, starved them, slaughtered them. There's never been a form of socialism that has been even mildly successful. It has failed. It's anti-life. And what the anti-life is anti-morality. The anti-life is the evil. Good is pro-life. Evil is anti-life. Socialism is anti-life. Therefore, it's anti. Therefore, it's evil. And again, everywhere you look, it's anti-life. Everywhere you look, it's failed. Everywhere you look, it has been a disaster. Some places worse than others. And you can look at Venezuela, you can look at North Korea today as examples of this. Nothing good comes from socialism. On a small scale or on a big scale. It's not true that families are socialist. It's just not true. It's certainly not democratic. But they're not socialist either. Not everybody gets the same. They don't get according to what they need. At least not a healthy family, not, maybe when the kids are very young, but it's not political. Hayek said families are socialist, and that's why people have this implicit, from each according to ability to each according to his need, is true within a family. Now, really, certainly not among adults within a family, but even children should learn at a pretty young age to fend for themselves, at least to some extent, so that they're not all provided by others, and not all their, quote, needs are met. That's how you raise welfare recipients, not independent adults. All right, what else can I tell you about socialism? Let's go to some of your questions to see if there's anything else comes up about socialism. Dan B asks, during the debate, Dr. Wolff complained how total body count is constantly overused as a measure of socialism success or failure. Isn't this the ultimate measure of political system success or failure? Yes, How many of your people die? How many of your people you kill is certainly a measure of your success or failure. If your policies are resulting in death, then it's absolutely a measure of whether your policies make sense or not. Again, the standard of good is that which promotes human life. The standard of evil is that which hurts them. People dying is hurting human life. So absolutely then, it is the ultimate measure of political system success or failure. And given the death toll that socialism has imposed on people living under it, it is a complete and utter, unmitigated failure. And how anybody out there actually thinks of themselves as a socialist, you should be ashamed of yourself and embarrassed. It is a despicable set of ideas. It's not cool. It's not hip. It's not modern. It's not forward thinking. It's backward thinking. It's disgusting. Because it's about death and destruction. And death and destruction is not cool or hip or modern or forward looking. Death and destruction indeed pretty old. What did I do here? Sorry. All right. Let us see. Okay. Daniel writes, I don't know, but I expected Wolff to do better. He came off angry and insulting. I'm not surprised. I've seen him do videos where he's just angry. That's all he is. And his take on Maoist China is unbelievable. Unbelievable is right. Mao Zedong is responsible. Depending on the historians you talk to, and there's a huge shortage of information, but Mao was responsible for the death of somewhere between 40 to 80 million people through the Great Leap Forward, which was basically the socialization of farming in China, which led shockingly to starvation. Everywhere farms are socialized, starvation follows. Look at Venezuela today. Mao, and then the Cultural Revolution, which of course was the attempt to brainwash and to kill, slaughter. I mean, really slaughter anybody who represented any kind of independent thinking that Mao did not approve of. Which on principle, Mao did not approve of independent thinking. So I don't know why you expected Wolff to do better. If you'd watched his videos, you would have realized, not his interviews, not his debates, because debates he did well because his opponents, well, all these questions, I thought. His opponents let him get away with murder, literally, right? So, but in the videos that he does, you can see his anger, you can see the seething, you can see the disgust, you can see the pathetic nature of the man. Jordan Miller writes, Richard Wolff seems so angry, bitter, resentful at the prospect of some of us having the audacity to be free. Well, and more than anything, to think for yourself and to use your mind independently of the collective, the democracy. Listening to you defend the principles that keep us free is worth more than I can pay. Thank you. Thank you, Jordan. I really appreciate that. That was Jordan. Alf writes, do you think that people that want to live a simpler life, as it get away from the city and live on an island and catch fish all day, are wrong? Or is it something we should strive for? No, I mean, I think it's as a regular thing. It's wrong. It's wrong because it's boring. It's wrong because you only live once and you should make the most of it. It's wrong because you're not fully living as a human being. You're not doing anything. You're not truly being productive. You're not really using your mind. You're calcifying. You're dead. So a life like that is meaningless. Meaningless to you. Now, I can imagine somebody wanting a simpler life, being out, in nature, but still doing productive things. But just catch fish all day, yeah, that's a rational, good human being wouldn't survive. He'd go crazy. He'd want out. So yes, I think that in that sense, seeking. Now, if you want that a month, a year, if you want to take a year off and do it, but no, remember what Ayn Rand says about productive work. It gives you purpose. And a life of catching a fish all day is not a life of purpose. What you need is a life of purpose. You need to challenge yourself. You need to push yourself. I know, stress and anxiety and it's hard and hard work. Yes, but that's what life is about. That's what gives it meaning. That's what gives it purpose. That's what makes it exciting. That's what makes it fun. Not the anxiety and the stress, but that's part that goes along with it. So yes, once in a while to relax is appropriate, but to have a life of relaxation is wrong. It undermines, I have this tool called reason for where all my values are derived from. I don't have any values. I'm just fishing. I'm not using my mind. Yeah, it's death. Slow death. I mean, it would drive me crazy because it's boring. Boring. All right, let's see. Corey says, but remember, Yaron, capitalism was the cause behind World War I and World War II. I said a little bit about that at the debate, but think about it. World War I was caused by a combination of lots of different things, but they had nothing to do with capitalism. That had to do maybe with imperialism, the competition between Germany and England, Germany's envy of English success. Indeed, you could argue Germany's envy of English capitalism. England was a more capitalist country. Germany was not. It was a welfare state. It was still relatively to England poor. It was caused by the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, which was trying to hold on to an empire in an era of rising nationalism. Nationalism that had been rising for 60, 70 years. And of course, it was the culmination of 100 years of a systematic philosophical attack on what? On individualism. I mean, in many respects, World War I is the end of the golden era of capitalism. It is the end of the golden era of individualism. There is no capitalism after World War I. 1914 is the beginning of the Federal Reserve and the income tax in the United States. It's the same year World War I starts. It's, in a sense, it's not an accident. The rising tide during this era is of Kantian, Hegelian nationalism. Noah says, debate Wolff again. I don't think Wolff would debate me again. I don't think he would. I don't want to debate him again. I've seen everything he has, and he's, the evil associated with whitewashing what Mao Zedong did in China. I can't sanction that anymore. I couldn't be civil in a debate with a human being that believes that what happened in China was, no big deal. Just, there are, what do you call it? People that have starvation all the time. Nothing special here. So I would not debate him. So that's World War I. What's amazing is that included World War I. You could kind of say, yes, it's the end of, this is the culmination of the most capitalist century in human history. So you can kind of make an argument that there's capitalism somewhere there. But World War II? Do you guys remember how World War II starts? I mean, I don't know. A lot of people don't know this history. And certainly Wolff doesn't want you to know this history. But World War II starts with an alliance between the National Socialist Party of Germany under Hitler and the communist regime of Stalin. Stalin and Hitler cut a deal to share Poland, split Poland in half. It's not just the Blitzkrieg where Germany invades Poland and takes big chunks of Poland. Okay? Yeah, that's what we learn. That's what we're taught. But on its eastern front, Poland is invaded by the Russians. The Soviets, the communists. I mean, World War II is a war of socialists. Initiated by socialists. Socialists of the right, socialists of the left, but socialists. Fascist socialists, communist socialists, but socialists. It's not. I mean, the idea that it's a war caused by capitalism is beyond bizarre. It is beyond absurd when you consider who played a role there and who started. Apollo asked, at what point does the threat of sweeping cultural popularity of socialism, collectivism become an emergency situation that requires strong action? Now, what does strong action mean? And since you added collectivism to it, I assume you also include the collectivism of the right. Now, it's an emergency. It requires strong action, which means you guys should be sharing my videos, which means you guys should be speaking up. You guys should be creating your own videos. You guys should be working hard to promote individualism. It's an emergency. The world is being taken over by collectivists. Now, if you mean strong action, when is it okay for the government to sweep in, to round up the socialists and put them in camps? Never. In the name of what would they do it? In the name of their variation of socialism, of collectivism, sorry. So absolutely strong action is needed today by you. Every day. Speak, 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 speak. Don't give in. Don't cower. I don't. Yaron says, looking forward to more movie recommendations. Thank you for introducing me to This Land Is Mine. Oh, top 5 movie in my book. One of the my favorite, probably top 5 is This Land Is Mine. If you can find it somewhere, get it, watch it. It's one of the greatest movies ever, or some of the greatest acting ever by Charles Laughton. Charles Laughton is brilliant in that movie, so go for it. Yes, given the contributions we've gotten so far, I'll give you, I'll put in, we'll choose 5 movies. At least some of them will be sci-fi, because Wes has put $20 behind that. All right, let's see. Is there a connection between Christianity and authoritarianism in history? What was Plato's role in the long history of authoritarian societies? Oh yeah, I mean, there's a strong connection with Christianity and authoritarianism. I mean, Christianity, at least in its origins as a Catholic religion, was authoritarian. I mean, and was very Platonic, Neoplatonic. There was one, person who actually talked to God, replaced God with the world of forms, and you kind of get Plato. And truth emanated from that one individual. Truth emanated from a different dimension. Truth was discovered through revelation. And imagine, if truth really comes from revelation, then authoritarianism is necessary. Because only some people get the revelations, most of us don't. So, so Christianity and authoritarianism, from the beginning, are hand in hand. Constantine is an authoritarian, the first Christian emperor. The Pope is an authoritarian, and the Pope then sanctions certain leaders as authoritarians. And then, of course, you get later, what is it, in the 18th century, 19th century, 18th century, 19th century, you get the divine right of kings, where the king is appointed by God to serve, well, to rule over you. And you must do what the king tells you because he's getting his authority directly from God. Now, that's not pagan God. That's not a Jewish God. That's not even a Muslim God. It's a Christian God. So the kings, Louis XIV, the various Louis, were there at the behest of God, as were the other emperors and the other kings in the 17th, 18th, 19th century. The Holy Roman Empire is Christianity and authoritarianism hand in hand. And I would argue, I think Leonard Peikoff has argued this, that socialism is just Christianity secularized. Socialism is Christianity, without God, where you replace God with the proletarian, and you replace the Pope with the leader, the dictator, who is necessary, to convey the will of the proletarian. Okay. So Christianity and authoritarianism in history have been hand in hand. And of course, Plato is inspires epistemologically authoritarianism by giving only some people the ability to discover the truth. And the skill that one needs in order to discover the truth is one of mystical one, of, in a sense, revelation. So, again, an epistemology, a Platonist epistemology requires philosopher kings, requires authoritarians. And, of course, Plato is very explicit in his authoritarianism in Plato's Republic, which is about as authoritarian as you could imagine, totalitarian in every aspect. The communist Russia or China or Nazi Germany have nothing over Plato's Republic in terms of the totalitarianism of the regime. And of course, Plato's Republic has inspired many of the authoritarians in history. So Plato, at the end of the day, Plato is the philosopher of authoritarianism. Christianity is just one manifestation of Plato's philosophy, as is socialism, as is fascism, all a manifestation of Plato. And that's, all right, anyway. Hunter asks, why can't these socialists go peacefully join their workers' co-ops and communes? Why do they have to steal from the rest of us? We enjoy seeing you in the debate. Keep up the good work. Thanks, Hunter. Hunter, thanks for being there. It was fun to meet you. And enjoy the Fountainhead. Hunter's reading the Fountainhead for the first time. Because their whole morality, their whole view of the world requires your sacrifice. They don't hold you as an independent moral entity. They don't hold you as having a life for yourself. The purpose of your life is to serve. The purpose of your life is to sacrifice for the group. And they get to define the group that you sacrifice to, the workers, whatever. And you can't get out of that. If you get out of that, you're being immoral, And it's their responsibility to uphold your morality. So there is no such thing as an individualistic socialist who will leave you alone. He's not going to leave you alone. The whole point of collectivism is you don't belong to you. You don't belong to yourself. There is no self-ownership in any sense. You are a organ of the collective. You are a means to an end of the collective, particularly if you have ability and skill. You certainly are. So no, they can't leave you alone. There's no way they'll ever leave you alone. They don't want to leave you alone. Their philosophy doesn't allow them to leave you alone because their philosophy dictates that you are part of them. You are one of them. You are organically connected to them. Stephen writes, last show a troll chimed in at the end of the show disparaging Mises. Mises was from a Jewish family. Yes, he was. And he was a classical liberal. Yes, he was. Agreeing with free speech markets. So saying he was a fascist is a ridiculous remark. I didn't see that. Mises was, of course, not a fascist. Absolutely not. He was a pro-freedom, pro-individualism. He was the greatest economist who ever lived, and did more for the cause of freedom than probably anyone other than Ayn Rand and Leonard Peikoff. So he is a hero, a good guy in every dimension. I mean, he's got some problems. He's mistaken about certain things, about the whole philosophy. He's too much of a Kantian in certain of his methodology, but he's a giant. Right? I don't dismiss communities, Richard. I don't know why you spend time here trolling and just being obnoxious and making stuff up about me on a group that is about this show. What are you doing here? Why are you even here? You despise me and what I stand for so much. Go away. Let's see. Okay, Yash asks, it would be great to have Leonard Peikoff's History of Philosophy Volume 2 available on YouTube. Please contribute a fundraiser for it. Could you push for that? It's not up to me. So Leonard has asked that the part 2, really not part 2, but the part after Kant not be as heavily promoted. He has asked that be kind of put on a back burner. That's not my decision. It is his. It's so you know, he's made that choice, not me, and he owns it, so it's all his. All right, Wyatt writes about Leonard. I heard Dr. Peikoff on his birthday. I haven't seen the interview yet. He told a lovely story about his friend Alice. He seemed to be trying to convey that it's okay to work with Christians. I mean, I met Alice. I got to know Alice a little bit. We had dinner with Alice and Leonard. My wife and I had dinner with Alice and Leonard a few times. Alice was a lovely person. She was charming. I met her when she was 99 years old. I mean, sharp mind, coherent, you know, alive and there. You can find individual Christians, individuals who take the Christianity seriously to this degree or to that degree, that are fantastic, that are wonderful, that are terrific human beings. I mean, you could argue that the founders of this country were Christians in some sense. Right? They called themselves Christian. So the very fact that somebody calls themselves Christian, the very fact that somebody is a Christian doesn't make them immoral, doesn't make them bad, doesn't make them a collectivist, doesn't make them necessarily bad in any respect. Certainly doesn't mean you wouldn't have a relationship with such a person. So I don't know, Wyatt 516, what you're implying here. I'm sure you've got some agenda here that goes beyond Leonard Peikoff really liking somebody who is a Christian. I know Christians who I really like. I get along with Christians. Some Christians even like me. I know that's shocking. Right? There's a lot of Christians in the free market movement, and I get along with them great, and many of them get along with me great. even though I condemn Christianity. I don't think Leonard, who did talks, many talks about the evils of religion, about the evil of Christianity in particular, and about how destructive Christianity has been to America, as an ideology has changed his mind. He met a wonderful woman who was also a Christian. That was never, nobody has ever implied that that was impossible, or that was weird, or that was strange, or that was anything like that. So, I know there's an agenda there. I assume there's an agenda there. Just be explicit with the agenda. Right? And ask Leonard. If you have questions about what Leonard meant, ask him. That question didn't strike you guys as having a hidden agenda? Maybe I'm just, maybe I'm reaching. You know, Wyatt 561 can get on here and tell us if there was an agenda. Or maybe he's gone. Oh yeah, he gave me a thumbs down and left. Maybe that's what happened. I don't know. Dan Vask. Thank you, Dan. That's 100. What is the R? Is that Brazilian? Rios? Is that? I don't know what that is. All right. Dan says, I'm a Christian and I appreciate Ayn Rand objectivism and your work very much so. Thanks for all that you do. My pleasure, Dan. And I'm glad. We need all the allies, true allies we can get. And if somebody can hold Christianity and Ayn Rand and individualism together, I think they can't. I think it's a forced integration. But if they can hold that, good. I'm not going to dismiss them. I'm not going to write them off. I mean, all the power to them. I speak in front of this Friday. I spoke in front of a group that was dominantly Christian. I will speak in front of them again in November and challenge some of their beliefs around Christianity, particularly around morality. I'll be speaking in November in Colorado in front of a group that's going to be dominantly Christian. What is exactly the story, right? So Dan, thank you for the support. Really, really appreciate it. I really look forward to actually meeting you in Brazil, because I'm really hoping that in 2013, maybe sometime early in 2013, the first 6 months of 2013, I will finally make it back to Brazil. Are you in Porto Alegre? Somebody's mentioning Porto Alegre here, but that is great. All right. Community is not a collective. Give me a break. And it's certainly not collectivism. Collectivism has an ism at the end of it. And if you don't understand what collectivism is, then nobody's against community and objectivism. We had a whole program at Ocon one year about how to improve and how to cultivate and how to grow the objectivist community. There's such a thing as an objectivist community. But there's no such thing as an objectivist collective. Collective implies that the group is above the individual. Community is not an illusion. Community exists. The collective is an illusion. Community is just one form of relationship between human beings. All right. Oh, Dan is in Minas Gerais. Near Rio. I've spoken in Belo Horizonte. Belo Horizonte is in Minas Gerais, I think, right? I think that's right. But Minas Gerais is a big state. It's a big state in Brazil. All right, should I talk about supply chains or should we just talk about movies? What would you guys rather have me do? Right? We still have to raise about at least $150, maybe more. But the question is, should we do it? It is another Dan. Is it? Oh, Daniel is from Porto Alegre, of course. He even knows Winston Ling. I assume he's my friend. Yes, Winston is my friend. All right, so movies. Okay, let's skip this. I do need another need. Need is not the right word exactly, but it would be, Dan has a community of 575,000 subscribers. Wow. Dan, that's impressive. Very cool. Very, very cool. And he's a Ayn Rand fan and an Objectivism fan and a Yaron Brook fan, and that's great. So share my debate with Wolff on your channel if you have 575,000 subscribers. That would be great. Let's see. Ooh, touchy there, Richard. Let's see. All right, let's do supply chains quickly. And then we'll do sci-fi movies. Top 5 sci-fi movies. So supply chains are backed up. If you go to California, you'll see ships way out into the ocean waiting to be unloaded. If you go to the rail yards, huge backlogs. They have been backlogs for at least about a year now. Backlogs at the ports, backlogs at the train stations. Containers are all in the wrong places. Moving containers around is taking up huge amount of energy. Of course, we've got massive shortages of energy right now, particularly natural gas in Europe. So prices are going through the roof. Basically, the supply chains in the world seem to be falling apart and breaking down. You order stuff now, and it doesn't take the 3 days that it used to take. It takes a week, 2 weeks. Sometimes can take months. Moving stuff, if you're moving, and you've got to get a truck to take your stuff from California to the East Coast, or to cross an ocean, or to send it to California, all takes much longer than it used to do. And more, I am seeing the blame for this fall on capitalism, fall on globalization. You know, capitalism, we know capitalism results in shortages. So today I heard an interesting explanation, which is partially true, but still doesn't get to the heart of it. It says, we've seen massive changes in consumption patterns. So the world, in terms of consumption, has shifted, right? People went from consuming services in the United States and Europe to a large extent to consuming goods. We couldn't do services, and we still have not gotten back to going to restaurants, theaters, malls, and things like that. We now buy stuff. So stuff, it's difficult to get stuff. Stuff is taking longer to get here. And because there's more demand for stuff, there are backlogs. But you have to be suspicious, because markets are excellent at dealing exactly with this, dealing with backlogs, dealing with shifting consumption patterns. If we started consuming iPads instead of iPhones, yes, for a short period of time, there'd be a shortage of iPads and an excess of iPhones. But very quickly, Apple would adjust, its supply chain would adjust, in a market. Prices would adjust. We've been having these problems in the supply chain for a year. Why haven't things adjusted? Now, partially, to produce more stuff, you need to expend capital to build plants, equipment, move employees around, and part of that is time-consuming. Okay, but time has passed. That is not the explanation. See, here's my explanation. The explanation is the statism of COVID. The explanation is the fact that over the last 19 months, the government has basically constrained production in all kinds of ways. Lockdowns forced people to stay home. They couldn't produce. It's not enough to consume. Somebody has to make the stuff that you're going to consume. The government has decided who essential workers are and who are not essential workers, thus centrally planning the means of production, determining what will be produced, how it will be produced. So what we get is massive central planning, massive distortions to the supply chain, massive distortion to the signals. Prices, because of a variety of different laws, when there's shortages, you're not allowed to raise prices. So the signal that there's increased demand doesn't get to the producers. And they can't profit as much for it because they can't raise their prices. There's a shortage of truck drivers because a lot of people were incentivized not to go to work, but to stay home. Not all truck drivers were considered essential workers. There's a shortage in the ports of laborers. Some because they got sick and they had to stay home. But again, a lot of it because they were disincentivized monetarily, socially, culturally from going to work. I'm sure work is slower if you have to wear a mask. So to blame this on capitalism is bizarre. This is the fault of government intervention. Now I'll add one more element. And there's no question in mind that some of this is a result of the campaign over the last 4 years against free trade. The tariffs, the added controls, the added regulations, the added restrictions on trade have consequences. So there's a shortage of workers because people are incentivized not to go to work. There's a shortage of workers because some people were told they're not essential. There's a shortage of production. No shortage of capital. No shortage of capital investment. But shortage of capital invested smartly in the right places because there's huge uncertainty about trade. And because there's huge uncertainty about lockdowns and about when things go back to normal. The current, Wolff accused me of always blaming government. Yes, when it comes to economics, economic problems are almost always the government's fault. And this is one of them. This is a consequence of campaigns against trade, tariffs, and COVID. All those COVID restrictions, all those COVID mandates are resulting in distorted supply chains. Right? You don't lock down an economy, assign essential workers and non-essential workers, and expect there to be no consequences. We're feeling the consequences right now. All right. That's all I have to say about tonight on supply chains. I have a feeling we're going to be talking about this more. And as I gain more info from the good economists out there, more ideas from the good economists out there, we'll share them with you. All right, let's do some more super chat questions. Thank you guys for adding to our totals. We're getting closer to the $600 mark, which is great. Let's see. And Zhao says, congratulations on the debate with Wolff. I'm a big fan of what you do. Another Brazilian. We got a number of Brazilians here. I've said this many times in the show. I love Brazil. I love Brazilians. Thomas, thank you for the support. Really appreciate it. I love Brazil. I love Brazilians. My favorite city in the world in terms of just scenery is Rio de Janeiro. It's just a stunning place. But Brazilians have so much energy and excitement and passion. I'm really hopeful that that they will be part of a real free market revolution to come. All right, let's see what we can do here. Sci-fi, we're going to wait still. Corey says, okay, Dr. Brook, if you're so smart, then who created the universe, huh? Gotcha. I don't know. Who created the universe? Nobody. But the universe was always here, always will be here. All that exists and has always existed, still exists. I don't know, something like that. So thanks, Corey, for an opportunity to say all that. All right, let's see what else we have. Andy, let's keep Squid Games there for a minute. Let's see, Lee, socialists like Wolff talk about freedom being at the core of their ideology, which is contradictory. How do they ever even come around to such a position? Well, wow. Thomas, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you for supporting free market capitalism. Well, I do it out of completely self-interested motivations, but thank you, Thomas, for supporting this show and supporting my efforts to bring free market capitalism to the world. Why does the left use freedom? Well, because they understand it completely differently. To them, freedom means freedom from the constraints of nature. And the honest socialists understand that you cannot, so free, for example, they often say you can't be free on an empty stomach. So freedom means having the means to do whatever the hell you feel like doing. Freedom is about satisfying your whims. And if you can't satisfy your whims, because other people are preventing you by not giving you their stuff, then you're not free. So freedom is freedom from reality. Freedom is, it's a freedom unmoored from reality. As you think about why the objectivists, why are we pro-freedom? We're pro-freedom because we have a particular view of the individual. We have a particular view of what it requires for an individual to survive and to thrive. Use his mind and be able to act on his own judgment. And to be free means to be free to use your mind, to act on your judgment. That's what human life requires. And therefore you must be free so that you can live a good life. Freedom is not the starting point. This is not the non-initiation of force, the non-aggression principle of the libertarians. Freedom is necessary because man is a rational being. Freedom is necessary because we hold an egoistic morality where the standard is man's life. If you don't hold an egoistic morality, then freedom is not necessarily moral or right. But freedom is such a lovely word that everybody wants it. Everybody wants to be associated with it. So what the socialists have taken that idea of freedom to pursue your values, to live your life, and said, you can only be free if you have all this other stuff. You can't, and since the employer-employee relationship is a relationship that oppresses, employees cannot be free. Since poor people don't have cars and can't fly planes and can't get a big screen TV and they can't eat at 3-star Michelin restaurants, they're not free. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do that they can do. You're oppressing them. They want to eat at the same restaurants you do. So they distort and pervert the concept of freedom to make the producer, the real individualist, the real advocate for freedom, the bad guy. Let's see. Matthew Noyes, cheers to your great debate with Richard Wolff. Thank you, Matthew. Really appreciate that. Zhao, how can we improve the economic situation in Brazil with so many miserable people? Without social assistance and medicine, many people would die in poverty, but with large government, we cannot get out of the situation and grow. I think it's relatively simple. It requires real will and real courage, which politicians rarely have. I've always said that in moving from a mixed economy to freedom, I think the last thing you do away with is the welfare system. It wouldn't be fair to do it otherwise. First, you establish a rich, prosperous economy where jobs are plentiful so that the poor can easily get a good paying job. And only then do you decrease welfare and entitlements. So what would I do in Brazil, in America, or anywhere, but particularly in a country like Brazil where poverty is so... Well, first, I've often presented this plan to reduce poverty in Rio de Janeiro, but it applies to all of Brazil to a less extent, but it still works. First, all the favelas in Brazil, people who live in the favela should get title on the land they live on. They should own their property. They didn't steal it from private citizens. They occupied government land. Government land doesn't belong to anybody. They occupied it. They used it. It's theirs. They should have it. Give them title. Giving them title, whether they cultivate the land, farmers, or whether they are just living on the land, will immediately create capital because that land is worth something, particularly in the favelas in Rio, where I think it's worth a lot. So immediately they get a certain amount of wealth. Immediately they get an asset. They get some capital. They can get a mortgage on that capital. They can go invest in a business. They can do things. So that's step one. Step one is privatize the favelas by just, favelas are where the poor people live, by just giving the poor people title on what they have. That's the first thing you would do in Brazil. And of course, nobody has the balls to do it. Second, privatize all industry. You've still got a national oil company. You've still got national, all kinds of things. Nationalize all industries. Crush all corruption. Simplify the taxes so that whatever taxes you're bringing in, it's simple, it's straightforward. It's not worth spending time trying to cheat it because it's low and it's simple. Flat, postcard-like taxes. Go to a corporate tax of 0 and have income taxes that are flat, 10%. Everybody pays 10% of whatever income they get. And there might be complexities with a corporate tax of 0. You'd have to work around so that people are not shuffling money into corporations or whatever. Maybe 10% across the board on everything. Privatize, privatize, privatize. Eliminate regulation. Oh, Thessie, thank you. Legalize drugs, which is a big one in Brazil, because that will take the money out of the gangsters. It would eliminate the gangsters. Oh, did I say nationalize? Privatize all industries. Sorry. Privatize all industries. Simplify the taxes. Even more important than the rate, it's the simplicity. Legalize drugs across the board. No, nobody clipped and nationalize all industries, please. God. What else? Get rid of all subsidies. All subsidies. And deregulate. Get rid of regulations on a massive scale. And you'd have a thriving economy. And you'd have lots of jobs. Capital will flow in. Poor would have jobs. They wouldn't need your welfare. And slowly, you phase out welfare. And I do the same thing in the US. I would not start off by going after the poor. I'd start off by eliminating all corporate subsidies, but also eliminating all regulations, or slowly over time, phasing out all regulations and eliminating all forms of cronyism, all opportunities for cronyism, the regulations, the complexity of the tax code, corporate taxes to 0, eliminate, simplify taxes, eliminate the opportunities for cronyism. That's the beginning. That's the beginning. Right? And then you can think about how you phase out a welfare state. Okay, Generic Jam says, hello from Australia. Send help, please. You guys are free come November 1. What's your take on China's new missile? Well, I don't know. I haven't read enough about the missile to know if it's real. and what it actually represents. Would you support the U.S. defending Taiwan, especially if our allies like Japan do so? Yeah, I mean, I would support under the right circumstances. I mean, first, I think right now what should be done is we should cut off diplomatic relations with China and establish immediately diplomatic relations with Taiwan. That would be the beginning, right? And in the right circumstances, an alliance of countries, maybe South Korea, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, the United States, maybe some others, guaranteeing the security of Taiwan would not be a bad idea, just in order to keep the Chinese in place, at least for now. But I think just cutting off diplomatic relations and isolating them in a political sense would put huge pressure on the Chinese to evolve and to change. Kyle Dunleavy says, Wolff's example of democratic workplace reminded me of the conversation Dagny had on the trams on page 658 of Atlas Shrugs, talking about his job in Wisconsin in the egalitarian workplace. Absolutely. A Century, what was it called? The Century Motors, and what happened there. I mean, Ayn Rand saw this whole I don't know why I didn't mention this earlier. It's in Atlas Shrugged. The whole democracy in the workplace is in Atlas Shrugged, and Ayn Rand provides a brilliant critique of it and illustrates brilliantly exactly what would happen. Thank you, Kyle, for reminding all of us. All right. Do you think WEF and Build Back Better is the imposition of global socialism, communism? WEF, I'm not sure what WEF is. Oh, the World Economic Forum. No, I mean, Build Back Better is just regular democratic expansion of the welfare state. Stuff they've wanted to do for the last 30 years. I don't think it's global. I don't think it's socialism. I don't think it's communism. Certainly socialism. But it's socialism as in a welfare state, not socialism as in the complete takeover of the U.S. economy or as in the complete takeover of the means of production. It's mainly more redistribution of wealth, more regulation, and more subsidies to industry. So you could argue in some ways it's a takeover. The World Economic Forum certainly is interested in imposing or in promoting a kind of global governance on the world that is certainly leftist motivated, particularly around climate change. But the World Economic Forum has no power, has no direct influence. It has influence indirectly, primarily intellectual and moral. And the World Economic Forum it's called the Great Reset. I did 4 shows on the Great Reset. They primarily want to use climate change as a means by which, and the way in which we're going to get more of these really, really horrible leftist ideas is through, I think, much more dangerous than anything the Biden administration is doing, are the trends among investors to promote climate change, the fact that BlackRock is voting for, leftist wackos to be directors on major corporations, the fact that they're putting pressure on companies to become stakeholder friendly rather than maximizing shareholder wealth. The Business Roundtable in the United States has declared under Trump 2 years ago, they declared while Trump was president that they want that they don't believe that corporations should be run for the sake of shareholders, but stakeholders. This is the Business Roundtable, the CEOs of the largest American businesses during a presidency of an American businessman, supposedly. So that was 2 years ago. This harmonization of taxes, corporate tax rate, is a bad deal, but it's purposefully set at 15%, well below the rate in the United States. So very few countries have a corporate tax lower than 15%. It's really bad. It hasn't passed yet. I'm not sure it can pass. It's not a global tax. It's a floor to what any individual country that taxes can take its corporate tax rate. So they can't make it less than 15%. Otherwise, they're in violation of this treaty. So it's it's terrible policy, and it's going to screw places like Hungary that has a 9% corporate tax, and Ireland that has a 12% corporate tax. But almost every other country has a corporate tax higher than 15%. So it's not going to affect 90% of countries. It won't even affect. It's a bad precedent, but it won't affect them. And yeah, it can rise above 15%, but it's not clear the 15% is going to be approved. It's not clear Congress is going to approve it. It's not clear the European Union will approve it. Remember that Hungary has veto power in the European Union. Every decision like this in the European Union has to be unanimous. 130 countries supposedly signed off on it. Not a single one has passed a law in regard to it. So, it hasn't happened yet. And I have my doubts whether it will ever happen. And whether it can pass the U.S. Senate, where you need 60 votes. No way are they going to get this treaty passed in the United States Senate. So it's just PR. It's for the U.S. It's for the Biden administration to tell these progressive people, look what I'm doing. I'm international corporation and I'm working. But it has no. It will not become actual law. I don't believe. Okay, Andy writes, the Squid Games features violence that is essentially agreed upon and is supposedly a criticism of capitalism. How do you deal with consensual violence in a free country? Dueling is another example. I mean, I'm against consensual violence. Now, you'd have to figure out what football is and what boxing is and what, ultimate whatever fighting is. So you'd have to figure out, but violence that causes death. I mean, we ban cockfighting, which I don't think we should, but we ban it in the United States. The equivalent of cockfighting for human beings would not be allowed. You can't choose to be a slave under capitalism. The government would not. You can do it, but the government would not uphold the contract. If one party refuses to abide by the contract and they were sued in court, the government would not uphold a slavery contract. It would not uphold a contract for violence. And they would stop the violence. The government has a monopoly over the use of force. And therefore, you wouldn't have that under a proper government that protected individual rights, which is a capitalist government. Now, again, I will give you a review of Squid Games once I have watched it. All right, Wes says, I'm a science fiction and fantasy fan. Any film recommendations on that front? All right, let me see. Let me do this. What's that? What did I do here? Where do I have it organized? I've got these lists, but they're not. It's not organized right now around. Let me find them. Find them. Okay, I'm going to have to do this differently. All right, give me 2 seconds, and I'll have an answer for that. Any other Super Chat questions that people are interested in related to any other topic, particularly movies, other than sci-fi? I'm going to give you my top sci-fi movies. If I think I've got a sci-fi category. Let me see. I've got comedy. I've got drama. There's science fiction. Okay, we're going to look. All right, see here are some of my top sci-fi movies. I think the early movies of James Cameron are brilliant. So I would put all 4 of the early James Cameron sci-fi movies as some of the best sci-fi movies ever made. That includes, in no particular order, The Abyss. The Abyss is a deeply epistemological movie. It's about how, if you watch it, the ending is screwed up. The ending is a complete disaster. But the movie itself is about how people deal with new knowledge, with new facts. How rational people, the various forms of irrationality, benevolence versus malevolence, in the introduction of new facts. There's no real bad guy. The only bad guy in the abyss is a guy who's sick. But there are no bad guys in the sense of chosen evil. But there's real conflict. And the conflict has to do with, okay, there's a new fact about reality none of us could have imagined. How do we deal with it? How do we relate to it? It's very rare that a movie has an epistemological theme. The Abyss does, as does Aliens with an S, Sigourney Weaver, the second one, not the first one. The second one is a movie about, again, rationality in crisis. Every character in that movie represents a different approach to crisis management. I can negotiate my way through it. I will just become hysterical. I will place wishes above mind. Or I will think. I will deal with reality as it is, and I hate Avatar. Avatar is one of the worst movies ever made. Sorry, Daniel. So Aliens is brilliant. It's suspenseful. It's exciting. It's dramatic, and it's about the mind. And so two epistemological movies, Aliens and The Abyss. Then you've got, where is it? Then you've got the two Terminator movies. And they're excellent. Both of them are excellent. Both of them have the theme, in the second one explicit, in the first one less explicit, but still there, of free will. Destiny can be changed. The future can be changed. It takes courage. It takes focus. It takes commitment. But you can't change the future. And that, again, is... And what it means to be human versus a machine is free will. Although in Terminator 2, the machine in a sense gains free will and chooses to commit suicide in the end, which is a beautiful, dramatic scene. So I'd say Terminator 1 and 2. 3 is garbage, but 1 and 2 are brilliant. The latest one was okay, but these are the best science fiction movies. Let me see some other ones. Gattaca is excellent. A real thought-provoking movie, suspenseful, very quiet, very under the surface, very powerful. So I'm a big fan of Gattaca. I, Robot is, I think, a terrible movie. I, Robot I give -1 out of 5 to. I gave -1 to Terminator 3 as well. Let's see, what else? Blade Runner, dark, depressing, but very, very well made. Very exciting and interesting. And definitely Blade Runner is one of those. Gattaca, Blade Runner, and the four... those 4 movies, Aliens, Abyss, and Terminator 1 and 2. Those are my favorite. Sci-fi movies. I don't know if they're the best sci-fi movies. They're my favorite sci-fi movies. Some of the Star Wars movies are better than others, although I don't think any of them are particularly good. Not on that level. X-Men, nah. Total Recall, I'm just looking at movies that I've got listed here. Spider-Man, no. The Predator, Minority Report, it's okay. Inner Space is good. I like Inner Space, if you consider that sci-fi. Fun, heroic, smartly written, good movie. Not at the level of the other ones. Frequency is not bad. Also, Free Will. The Fifth Element is fun. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Steven Spielberg's movie, is interesting. Back to the Future, of course. If you consider that a sci-fi movie, that would be one of my top. All right, so you got my top sci-fi movies. Ian says, speaking of sci-fi, you're going to see the new Dune movie. Might be the first movie I see in theaters since March 2020. Yeah, I'll probably see it. I'm not hopeful. I'm not a huge fan of Dune, the story. But I might go see James Bond in the theaters before Dune. But James Bond might be the first movie I see in the theater since March of 2020. All right. I think we'll call that a night. Somebody wants to put in some money for me to give you the top 5 Westerns or the top 5 comedies or the top 5, I don't know, dramas or the top 5 something else. I'm happy to do that. But it would have to be at least $20. Wes says, thanks for the recommendations. I've seen some of the ones you listed, agreed on The Abyss. Hopefully you can watch the others that I listed and let me know what you thought. Interstellar, it was mixed about Interstellar. Logan runs okay. I mean, I just had a partial list here that did not include everything. Certainly did not include newer movies. But again, if you want the list of my top 5s on anything, war movies, thrillers, action movies, you're going to have to put up some bucks. All right. Thanks, everybody. I am done for tonight. I will talk to you on... Ooh, we got 5 thumbs down. What did I do? God. It's amazing. You guys are just amazing. You surprised me. I didn't think I mentioned Trump once. Oh, God. Every time I mention Trump, I get a few extra thumbs down. District 9 is good. It's not, again, at the level of these other movies. It's not as well made, among other things. I've seen a lot of old movies. I haven't seen a lot of the newer movies. What did you think of Ad Astra? You're going to have to remind me of what Ad Astra... See, my memory of things of these things is bad. I don't remember Ad Astra. I'm pretty sure I watched it, but I can't remember what it's about. Let me see if I can pull it up and see what it's about. Ad Astra. Yeah. What did I think of Ad Astra? I probably would have given it a 2 or 3. There were things about it I really liked. And there's certain things about, but I never cared for the main character. He was so removed, the one played by Brad Pitt. He was so removed and detached and unemotional and it was too cold. It was too cold. So I couldn't really enjoy the movie. Certain aspects of it were clever, but I couldn't really enjoy it. All right. I will see you all on Tuesday. No show tomorrow. Definitely a show on Tuesday. See you guys then. Don't forget to share. Stuff that you like. You don't have to share everything. But please share. It's the only way we grow. And like, we got a bunch of new thumbs down. I don't know why they show up here, but now we're up to 7. So give it a thumbs up before you leave. And don't forget to support the show. You can support it by contributing at YaronBrookShow.com/support. Patreon Subscribestar. We did really well today. We beat our $600 goal by a little bit, so we're probably closer to 700, so that's great. Thank you, all of you, for making that possible. Don't forget you can use Patreon, Subscribestar, all of those ways to sign up. All right, thanks everybody. I will see you all on Tuesday.